Our next guest is Pittsfield High School basketball coach Jason Knott, who's back in Central Wisconsin as the school superintendent at Pittsfield and now coaching Panther girls as well. Coach, thanks for coming by and welcome to our program.
Happy to be here.
And tell us about, first of all, the process that got you back into Pittsfield and coaching the girls basketball program this year.
Well, so class of 1990, Pittsfield grad, and then gone for 33 years, and had been a teacher and a coach in the Edgerton School District for about 15 years, and then I went into administration in Evansville, which is about 15 miles away from Edgerton, and spent a decade there. And a year and a half ago, the superintendent position opened up in Pittsfield, and I was contacted about it, and the more I explored it, and at the point I was at in my life and my family, we discussed it and made the decision to apply for the position, and was fortunate enough to be offered the job and moved back. And girls basketball was not on my radar at that time, you know, when I came back in, and then when the position opened up back in the spring, had a couple people approach me about it, and once again talked with my family. And coaching had been a huge part of my life, and basketball obviously prior to coaching, and elected to dive in with the coaching again here, and the school board supported it. You know, obviously there's that tricky part of being a school superintendent and then also serving in that role. And I had actually talked to John in Neilsville to get some perspective, in the same position, and made the decision to move forward with it, and have had zero regrets at this point right now. So it's actually been invigorating for me. Something I've missed a great deal, and it hasn't added to my plate as a burden. It's actually added to my plate as a positive. So,
Coach, what does it mean for a local individual like yourself to come back and take those roles, not only as coach, but as school superintendent, administrator, and knowing the community and knowing some of the ins and outs and some of the positives, negatives, things like that? How is that helpful as a local guy?
Well, a double-edged sword, Gene, is that there's positives that I obviously know the community and the community knows you, but then there's the other side of that is that, you know, the last time I was here, I was a 19-year-old. So you got to look at it both ways, as I hope I've matured a little bit since 19, now being 52 years old. But there's a special feeling about, you know, the old saying, you can't go home again. You can. And I think the length of the absence made it a little easier to transition back there. A lot of pride involved. I talked about that when we did our interview earlier this year about the pride of being in your hometown and working in that program and working in the school district where I went to school and in the community I grew up in, and now raising our children in that community. I talk to the girls all the time about that Pittsfield, that Panther pride, and I try not to tell too many stories. You know, they don't want to hear that stuff about the 1990 basketball team. And one of my assistant coaches is Kelly Hahn, who was on the girls state tournament team that Mark Denniston coached. So she's on staff with me, and we try to minimize the amount of, you know, reminiscing about the old times. But we do let that pop out every once in a while to kind of talk about that, and just about the pride of, you know, with this group of girls, they've grown up together. They've been playing together since they were little girls, and there's something special about that, developing together, and they use that as a tool. Boy, they feed off each other, and I feed off of them, the energy they play with. So I've enjoyed it. I haven't experienced any of the negatives yet, to be honest with you. But also, I'm probably still what you'd consider in the honeymoon period, a year and a half in. But I'm old enough to know that there's going to be bumps in the road. But thus far, it's been all positive as far as the return home and being back in Pittsfield again.
As you and I spoke earlier this year, you really took a lot of steps during the off season to prepare for this, getting ready to know this year's ball club as well.
Yeah, we went to we were very fortunate to get into a team camp because it's kind of late in the game when I got the position, and we were able to get into a summer league up in Weston. That was a very competitive summer league, and actually saw Pacelli and Allman, Pacelli was in it, and several other schools that we're going to see during the course of the year, and some JV teams from some D1 schools, Spash, Marshfield, which, you know, considering school size, those were games that were probably appropriate level at the time that we were at. We went to UW Stevens Point team camp with the kids. You know, opportunity to just see them play. We didn't get very deep into stuff. We more or less talked about what our philosophy was going to be, what do we want to focus on, and it was a resounding defense. We're going to build our foundation on defense, and it's the way we played when I was in school. Although we put up bundles of points, but we played pretty solid defense as well. And then as a coach, defense was always important. So we just talked about what do we want to value, what are we going to hang our hat on, and then we just went on and played. We didn't put in any play sets or any of that stuff. It was a matter of I wanted to see the kids compete this summer, and I told them that. I just want to see you play basketball. Nothing fancy. And what I discovered pretty quickly was that I had a bunch of competitors. And that was evident pretty early that, we're athletic. We're athletic. Those girls like to compete. They're our practices, I would argue our practices tend to be more difficult sometimes than we get in the games as far as what, the girls going at each other because they really try to push each other and improve. But the summer gave me a neat opportunity, first of all, for them to get to know me and kind of what I'm about as a coach, and then for me to get to know the kids, set some goals. So without that, I don't even know where we would be at right now. It just gave a nice foundation for the work we've been doing after the season started here.
Now, how would you assess the start of your season so far?
So very happy with, there's been some struggles in the games with, our shooting percentage isn't where I would like it. Now, I talked to the kids tonight at practice about this. They said, I think we're 3 of 31 as a team to start the season, 3 games from 3. That's not going to play out for the whole season. I would stake a kidney that we're not going to shoot, 10% from 3 for the season. Well, in our free throw percentage isn't where we have expectations to be. The reality is we've won 3 games and we've done pretty well in those games with those things. And it's not that I'm the eternal optimist, but I tried to, get across the girls. It's like those areas are going to improve, and we're putting up. We're averaging around 71 points a game right now, and we're not making free throws, and we're not hitting 3-pointers. That's a high upside with those types of things. And what's been consistent in those first 3 games is what we talked about. It's one thing to talk about defense. It's another thing to go out and make it a focus every night, and they do in practice and in games. They take pride in that, and we talk about make it personal. Every possession, it's personal. Then we're not going to allow that team to score on us, and they've bought into that, and they get me fired up on the bench the way they play defense. The girls do. I've said it before. It's I'm 52 years old. There's not a lot that gets me fired up anymore, other than sitting in a recliner and taking a nap after football in the afternoon. But I'll tell you what, I get fired up with these kids watching them play defense. They're a fun group, and they play hard. They play the game the right way. They're unselfish. So it's been invigorating for me getting back into the game with this group of kids.
Let's get some questions and comments from Larry Hazer. Larry?
Coach, you mentioned back in the 1990 team, the reminiscing and all that. Do you bring any of that back with you now, that coaching? The way you played back then? I know you kind of mentioned it a little bit there.
Yeah, we play very similar, actually. I like to get the ball up the court. We like to get the ball up the court, and we call it strategic fast breaks. We're not necessarily looking to get a layup, but we want to push the ball up the court, and then we can get into our set because we have depth. We go 9 deep, and that's very beneficial with the way we play because they play fast and furious. And I tell them, you'll go out there, give it everything you got, and then you'll get a sub. That team had a lot of depth, and it was similar to what I referenced a couple of minutes ago, very competitive practices because we had a deep team that went after each other because we wanted to help each other improve. So we get the ball up the court, and we put points together in bunches. But I would tell you, that philosophy of getting everybody involved and pushing the ball up the court would be the 2 things that really kind of stick out to me that are similarities. And if you were to break it down player by player, is that we had a very talented roster back then. There were a lot of exceptional basketball players on that team and team players. There are similarities in that we have some kids who are very skilled athletes. We were talking earlier about that. These kids are all 3-sport athletes, as you need in schools our size. So they're not just basketball players; they're athletes, but they're athletes who are pretty good basketball players too. And they're just a fun group. So a lot of the athleticism and just that tenacity that they bring out on the court, and we'll play fast. And I think of folks, I've had some folks comment, honestly, that were, back in the day, went to our games and comment and said, boy, sometimes it's like watching that team play again, which I would take as a compliment.
Yeah,
so.
yeah. Now, you mentioned you're kind of laid back now, being the old age of 52.
Yeah.
Is that your coaching style too? I mean, you get a little feisty on the sideline there? Or?
You know, so I have Nick Kuhn is my JV coach and assistant coach, and Nick's dad coaches over in
Sure,
Neilsville.
yeah.
Basketball is a huge part of his life, and he's a new teacher in the district. Last year we hired him, and I was talking to Nick earlier this week about coaching because he's at the beginning of his coaching career. And he and I had a conversation. I said, Nick, when I was a new coach, and this is common with new coaches, I yelled a lot. Number one, because sometimes kids don't listen when they're on the court and the crowd's loud. And then sometimes you yell a lot when you're young as a coach because you don't know what else to say at the time, right? Because you don't have that toolbox of skills. What I'd tell you is as I coach through the years and I develop more of those skills and the ability to rely on, on my assistants, I more probably looked at it as a warm demander, more or less like motivate the kids. If something I say to the kids is, I don't yell and scream at kids, I'm going to tell you why. You got young men and women that are out on the basketball court, they make a mistake, they're wearing it, they know it. The last thing they need is their coach yelling and screaming about it in a timeout to bring more attention to it. So I try to focus on, like, what is it we're looking to do more than those types of things. So yeah, I would tell you, me, looking back at how I coached in my, when I was a young pup 25 years ago, drastically different with how I do that. But I think that's probably a natural progression for a lot of coaches is when you're young, you tend to yell a lot. And as you get older, you figure out that the kids want it just as bad as you do. I have a pet peeve phrase. I've always had it as a coach is coach yelling out, hey, come on, we worked on that in practice. I've told my coaches, don't ever say that. Because what you're saying right there is it's not my fault, it's the kid's fault. When you yell, we worked on that in practice. I know it sounds silly, but just things like that. So yeah, I would say that's pretty accurate.
All right.
Coach, how about your staff for this year?
So I mentioned Nick. Nick Kuhn is my JV coach, so he is a teacher in the school district. And then Corey Cum is one of my volunteer assistants. And then Kelly Michaels, Kelly Hahn, who was a player back in the day for Mark Denniston. It's a nice, well-rounded staff. Kelly brings that piece that the other three of us don't to the girls. The reality was I was never a high school girls basketball player, right? So she's able to relate and connect from that lens, and the girls really rely on that with her, and she does a phenomenal job. She has that knowledge of the game. It's a different game. Although I will tell you, I've commented that we had an exceptional defensive game last night and told the girls, I said, girls, this defensive effort you guys put forward tonight rivaled anything that any of the teams I played on or any of the boys teams I coached. And I coached varsity boys teams at Edgerton. As far as a full product, it rivaled any of those games defensively they put out there. So I'm not trying to sell our young ladies short, but it's a different game than a boys game. So I'm very comfortable with the staff. I think we kind of complement each other. We're not afraid to discuss things and disagree on things and have a conversation, which I think is effective. When you're able to, you don't want everybody thinking the same. Like if you do that, you get into a kind of a silo.
And you're back in action Friday against Rosholt.
Friday at Rosholt. Yeah, we have 5 in a row on the road. This will be number 3 in a row on the road. Nice thing about that is the next 5 are at home. So we'll have a nice home stretch over the month of December when the roads are not going to be exactly glamorous for driving. But I like it. This group, kind of thrives on that idea. Let's go into their house and kind of show them what we're made of. So, yeah, we're at Rosholt Friday and then in New London next Tuesday. Mm-hmm. So,
well, Coach, good luck.
Can I get one more comment in?
Yeah.
Are you surprised at all at how well your team is doing?
No.
Okay.
To be frank with you, no.
Okay.
Now, not what I saw this summer. Not at all. I know probably the humble thing to say is yes, but nope, not at all. Those of us that were around this summer, the parents and the folks who watched them play could see glimpses of this. I didn't think we'd be quite where we're at yet early in the season defensively and with our offense, but not surprised in the least, nope.
Okay.
All right, well, Coach, good luck throughout the season. Thanks for coming by.
Thank you.
After a couple years of a job that doesn't fit, it's time for more money, more opportunity. That is where Mid-State Technical College comes in. Would cooking be a good fit? Try on a career in welding. Perhaps the outdoors suits you better. Or maybe helping people is a better fit. No matter your path, we've got cutting-edge classes with field-trained professionals and better tuition options, making Mid-State the perfect fit.